Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the amazing Kara Grosfield. Kara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad we could link up and do this. Some of you have already seen Kara because you watched the video on the Jammin with the Indiegogo. I also have those links in the description, as well as Kara's social media links. So make sure you're clicking down here in the description. A little bit about Kara. She is an amazing actress, screenwriter, and director, currently living in Colorado. So right now, the big thing is Jammin. With obviously spoiler free, can you give us a little insight into your role in the Jammin'?
Absolutely. My role in The Jammin' is basically just me in a movie. Her name is Anna, and she is just every horror nerd's dream woman. She knows everything about like spooky, scary stuff. She is very confident and edgy, which maybe that's not fully me, but enough that I can portray it in a movie.
Right. And from what I've gotten to know you as a friend, you definitely seem like every horror man's dream. So that definitely does seem like you on the screen. So I'm very happy you were able to land this role. And I know that things get so tied up in NDAs and getting caught in the pipeline, but do you have anything coming up here in the future after Jammin' that you can tell us about, or is everything kind of under wraps at this moment?
Nothing that I can talk about right now, but I do
Okay.
have a couple of exciting things coming out soon. Fingers crossed.
Right. And the good thing about that is you guys don't have to wait for me to update you because her social media links are down here in the description. So all you got to do is click these social media links, give her a follow, and you'll be able to keep up with her in real time. Now, Jammin', obviously, horror movie coming out with an amazing cast, an amazing crew that I'm so glad to call my friends. But in order to get anywhere in the horror world, horror has to start for you somewhere. So, Kara, I want to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Kara, your first horror movie was?
Nightmare on Elm Street, original.
What an amazing start to your horror life. And again, for people that are constant viewers of the podcast, I'm sorry you have to hear me repeat myself so much, but this is as close as you can get to a perfect horror movie. The practical effects are great. The villain is amazing, and he's withstood the test of time. And the thing about the villain in this movie, Freddy Krueger's on screen for 7 minutes of this movie. And that's how memorable he is. So, Kara, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh my goodness, I was really young. I think I was maybe like 7 or 8 at the time.
Oh,
My
man.
mom and I had a like girls' night, and of course, instead of getting our nails done, we decided, you know what? It's time to watch your first horror film. You're old enough, I guess. And we
Right.
popped into Nightmare on Elm Street, and I didn't sleep for a week.
I like how you're like, instead of getting our nails done, we watched Freddie do things with his nails. Like, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, A Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those films that obviously has withstood the test of time. So many amazing things have happened because of this film in horror. And I could get into that for hours. I could have a whole retrospective about this movie and the influence it's had in the horror world. But what scene would you say affected you the most from this movie?
Oh, that's such a difficult question because there were so many that it's hard for me to just pick one. But I think for me, the most like disturbing image was when Freddie like peeked through the wall and like his figure was like hanging over Nancy.
Yes.
That scared the living piss out of me. I was not the same after watching that scene. It was very
No, and that's a great, great scene. And I love how they just cut out a part of the wall, put some latex on it, and literally just push the face through it. Like the practical effect there is so awesome. Like it's so great. And I've always said this is one of my top 3 favorite practical effects movies. They really went. This was a low budget film. People don't remember that because of how great it looks, but this really was a very low budget film. But you had great minds and hard workers behind the scenes that made it what it is today. Now, the good thing about this movie is they just did a remake, obviously. And we talk about the practical effects in comparison to the CGI. And that scene you were just talking about, this is, if you wanted to teach a college course on why practical effects are better than CGI, put these scenes next to each other. And that's all you got to do. And it'll show you this is why practical will always beat CGI. Now, we talk about which scene affected you the most. But Kara, what would you say your favorite scene from A Nightmare on Elm Street is?
I guess as a trauma baby, I think the end of Nightmare on Elm Street when Nancy finally is just like, I'm not giving you power anymore, you son of a bitch. And I was like, yes, queen. I remember watching that and going, well, shit, is that how it works? A badass woman just like doing what she wants and just like tell him to go fuck himself? I was like, I love that. So that would be my favorite for sure.
And that's what I've always loved about horror is women have always held the power in horror. You've always had your final girls kicking ass. It's been ahead of the curve on all social issues, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Horror has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to women's rights, trans rights, LGBTQ rights in general. And this movie is no different. You have this young lady, I hate saying girl, but you have a young lady that defeats the person that's been coming after her since she was a child. Even in the afterlife, he's found a way to come back and come after her, and she still defeats him. So that's a pretty amazing thing right there. Now, the kills in this movie, while they are few and far between, this movie definitely went for quality over quantity when it comes to the kills of the film. So, Kara, what would you say your favorite kill from Nightmare on Elm Street is?
Well, that's an easy one. And I think it's mostly because of how it was done. We were talking about the practical effects. When Tina just gets like murdered in that room and the whole room's like spinning around, but we don't see it. She's just floating on the ceiling. And it's beautiful. It's so exciting. And I wish I would have been able to be there and watch it be filmed because it would have been so cool.
Right. And that's one of those kills that really does stick with you, because you're not seeing what's going on. All you see is her. Like, you never see Freddy in this scene. And that's partly due to how the reason Freddy was in this movie for so little time was because of the makeup, trying to make the makeup look the same in every scene. So they're like, well, let's have him kill her without him being there, and brilliant, absolutely brilliant to watch what Rod is going through. Tina, and he doesn't know, like, what the fuck's happening here right now. Like, so I love that scene as well. We touched on it briefly. I am not anti-remake. It's not something that's in my blood. There are some good remakes. There are some not so good. But what were your opinions on the Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
It just made me so mad. I didn't like it at all, to be honest with you. I was very passionately anti the remake, actually, because it was painful to watch as somebody who loves the original so much, which could be my problem, is I'm just too much in love with the original to give it a chance. But also just what they did with Freddy, I didn't like it.
See, and here's my thing. Like, I've grown to actually become a big fan of the remake. And one reason why is actually Jackie Earle Haley's Freddy Krueger. He does what Robert Englund couldn't do as Freddy Krueger, and that's make us hate him. Like, we're supposed to hate this guy. We're not supposed to like the child killer, and he portrays that as, I'm evil, I'm disgusting, I'm vile, and it makes you hate him. And I was always like, and that was my big problem. Like, oh, I don't like Freddy. And then one of my buddies was like, you're mad that you don't like the child killer? And I was like, quite the point you bring up, my friend. But, we were forced to fall in love with Freddy when we were kids. You had him in Doritos commercials, like, ha, get your Cool Ranch. Like, he was everywhere because he's Captain Charisma. Like, you couldn't help but love Freddy Krueger. And in the remake, they were like, you know what? This guy's a child predator. We're not supposed to like him. And Jackie Earle Haley took on the impossible job of living up to what Robert Englund did. And, it's impossible. Because you got your Michael Myers, your Jasons. Yeah, they were always different guys, but they have a mascot to cover that. Freddy was always Robert Englund. And then they're like, hey, you're going to come in and you're not a child killer anymore. You're a child rapist. And he's like, yeah, sign the dotted line. Let's do it. So they gave him an impossible job, and you watch it and he is disgusting in the film. When Nancy's like, he's like, what do you want to play now? And she's like, fuck you. And he's like, sounds like fun. Like, he's disgusting and vile and you hate him. And this is the first time I can actively remember in any Nightmare on Elm Street movie not rooting for Freddy. I'm always like, come on, kill him. I want to see how you get him. Get him, man. Get him. But then now you're like, oh, this guy's gross. I don't like you, you nasty bastard. So, like I said, over time, I was like you. When I left that theater, I was like, my day's ruined. This just ruined my whole day. I don't think it'll ever touch what A Nightmare on Elm Street did, but I've grown to respect what they tried to do with it. So, yeah. But enough about me. We're here to talk about.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So this is A Nightmare on Elm Street is part of a bigger franchise. Yes. Have you seen all the movies in the franchise? And if so, which one is your favorite from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise?
I have some less than others, because I mean, they're fine, but I think Dream Warriors is probably my favorite,
Yeah.
the third one. It's just, I like the characters, all of the characters in that movie. As a mentally
Mhm.
ill person myself, I was like, ooh, we love this, a psych ward. And so I just appreciate it. And also the kills in that movie are just 10 out of 10 stars. I love them
Yeah.
so much.
Well, and I think that's one of the first times where you actually are like, okay, these are people that I enjoy. Like I want to see Freddy get his kills, but I don't want to see any of them die. I like them all, and some of the kills in that movie, like you said, like the puppet kill, like when he's walking and his tendons are all out, like it's so gnarly looking.
In the best way.
Yes.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times in my life that I've said, welcome to prime time, bitch. Like that's another, like I love that. This is when Freddy really hit his stride too on becoming not just evil, but his one-liners and comical. It really worked out.
Yes. The things that we'll never forget about Freddie, his punchy one-liners. He's a comedian who just didn't get success, and so he became a child murderer instead.
I mean, everybody's fallback, you know.
Yeah,
Well, I can
exactly.
always fall back on killing kids if this doesn't work. So, now I do usually ask, we kind of covered it already, but with the remake, you said you weren't a big fan. That was in 2010. That's actually been 12 years ago that remake was made. Would you like to see them take another shot with a Nightmare on Elm Street remake today?
Actually, this is a fun question because I've heard Elijah Wood talking about, because he's actually really into horror and he's into directing as well. And I've heard him talking about wanting to do another remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. And if I would trust anyone to do it, it would be Elijah Wood. Do I know if I could emotionally handle another bad remake? I don't know. But I think if the right people had it, and the right writers mostly is where my fault usually lies with remakes, is in the writing. So if the right writers would come in, I mean, as long as I got to act in it, I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So, okay, well, let me ask you this question because I've answered this a lot and I've given a lot of thought on this. My answer will not change until it happens. But they come to you and they say, Kara, you get to cast our next Freddy Krueger. Who are you going to pick to be the next Freddy Krueger?
Oh my goodness. That's an amazing question that I don't know if I have an answer to. Because there's just like one Freddy in my head that's allowed, and me being able to
Yeah.
imagine somebody else, I really don't know. It would have to be
For,
somebody, in my opinion, that is unknown. I think that that's the best thing about horror, is they bring in a lot of unknowns with a lot of talent, and so I think that would probably be my main choice, is making sure it's somebody who's unknown who likes horror would be my requirements.
I know this sounds, a lot of people are like, really? But I really, really think that Devin Sawa could be an amazing Freddy Krueger. I think that he could just nail that role. He's got that dark, raspy voice when he wants to. And he's got the look. Like, I just think in his charisma and everything he does, he's just always a scene stealer in everything that he's in, whether it was Salt Lake City Punk, Casper, obviously, when he stole the show when he was in Casper, Idle Hands, like everything he's in, he completely steals the show. So I would love to see Devin Sawa play Freddy Krueger.
That would be interesting. I mean, he has a couple of good names under his belt, so I
Right.
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed.
So we talked about A Nightmare on Elm Street being your first horror movie and how that affected you. And I want to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, Kara. My little buddy Ghostface has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Kara?
Oh,
What
that's
is
an
your
amazing question.
favorite? Yeah, what's your favorite horror movie of all time?
I've been asked this question a lot, and I can never give one answer because my favorite of all time is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mhm.
But the one that just brings me the most serotonin is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, because it's just so good. So it's really hard for me to pick because I have just such a sentimental like relationship with Nightmare on Elm Street. But I did in fact write like a 50-page paper in film school about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So either it's a toss up.
Texas Chainsaw is definitely an artsy film. Like I think it's more of an art film than it is a slasher. Like the art department for that film went all out on what they did to make that film look gritty and beautiful. And I'm with you. I love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that it's a work of art, and it gets mislabeled as a gross slasher. and it's not. There's very little blood and gore in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's very artsy, very Hitchcockian almost, with the way that they cut away from a lot of the kills. And I agree with you. I think the original Texas Chainsaw is par for the course when it comes to being one of the most inspirational horror movies of all time.
Yeah, it's a beautiful film. And the story from behind the scenes, I talked about this last time I was on the podcast, but I just feel so bad for the actors, but it turned out so good on
Right.
the viewing side of it all.
Oh yeah. Did you watch the remake, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that just came out on Netflix?
I actually have only watched reviews of it. I haven't watched I've watched all the other remakes. I just haven't watched the new one yet. It looks interesting though.
I mean, I guess it's a requel. It's not really a remake. It really picks up. It's kind of a Halloween 2018 thing. I enjoyed it. Like, if you go into this looking for Oscar-winning performances, you're not going to get it. But if you go into this movie looking for a massacre that happens in Texas with a chainsaw, you'll be happy. And that's all I was looking for. I was looking for them to wow me with their kills, and I thought they did a great job. I wouldn't say that I would, give it a rave review, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I'd watch it again, absolutely no doubt.
Okay, I have to watch it then because I heard the original Final Girl comes back, and
Yes.
that always gets me. What can I say?
For me, the original Scream Queen, because man, that scene with her at dinner, so rough. Such a rough scene to sit and endure. It just breaks my heart watching that scene.
And I know as an actress, that would have been really hard to film. That would have been so emotionally draining to shoot that scene. So I'm proud of her for getting through that.
And not just that, but because the heat that was going on, the meat was literally rotting on the table there. Gunner was running out puking in between takes, like dedication to the craft. And it really shows in the film, like you said. So, Kara, I can't tell you how much it means to me being able to spend a little bit of time with you. This has been so great. But we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll. So before they do, we're going to go back to Nightmare on Elm Street, and we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, what we're doing, Kara, we're not going to rank it on production or quality, direction, acting, nothing like that. What we're doing is strictly ranking this movie on how much it affected you. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can give half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. What would your ranking of A Nightmare on Elm Street be?
Well, the answer is a very obvious 5 skulls. Because
Right.
when I tell you that I literally cried when Wes Craven died, because I thought I was gonna be in his movies. I had intent. The only reason I got into acting was so I could be in a Wes Craven film, and it's because of the original time I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. It fully changed my life. So yes,
And
5.
that's amazing. And the thing is, you may not ever be able to be in a Wes Craven film, but you can still cement part of his legacy by being in a film that he originally, they're still going to continue Nightmares. They're still going to continue Screams. The door is not closed for you, love. So you can still be in that universe in one way or another. So before these credits roll, guys, I'm going to say it again. Social media links in the description. So make sure you're giving her a follow. Make sure you're checking her out on social media. Don't go anywhere, Kira. I got a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.